Hello, and welcome to the fourth day of the National MPS Society's 35th Annual Family Conference. My name is Caitlin Blackman. I'm the Associate Development Director at the Society. Thank you for joining us today. Fundraising is essential to the mission of our organization. Contributions from our generous donors allow us to fund research and family programs that support our community. Our annual fundraising goals are met through a variety of strategic methods, and family fundraisers are an integral part of our fund development plan. Today, we'll hear from recent fundraisers, Alicia Bohley and Ashley and Brian Newman, on the importance of family-hosted events. They'll share tips for making your event successful, creative, and unique for your network of supporters. After this session, we hope that you'll visit the fundraising booth and reach out if you're interested in hosting an event.
Hey everyone, my name's Alicia Bohley. I live in Raleigh, North Carolina with my husband Chad and our two kids, Mia and Jacob. Jacob was diagnosed with MPS I Hurler syndrome in March of 2020, just 2 days after his third birthday and right at the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm super excited for this opportunity to share a little about our story and how I got involved with fundraising with the Society. After 3 years of being misdiagnosed, we never thought that a physical therapist through our school system would notice that Jacob had coarse facial features and a limited range of motion and tell us that we should have his genetics tested as soon as possible. We followed up shortly after that with UNC Genetics, and a few weeks after that we received the MPS I diagnosis. We were almost immediately connected with the National MPS Society. Through my frantic Googling in the weeks waiting for that phone call, I came across their website and their Facebook page, and I saw that they had posted the Run for Rare. We shared the news with our family and friends immediately. I created a Facebook page to keep everybody updated, and the outpouring of love and support that we received when we shared our diagnosis was overwhelming. I mean, so many people wanted to help, and as much as we wanted them to be able to help us, we were trying to digest this information that we were reading. We were trying to digest the diagnosis itself. So we didn't have a tangible way for them to help us that we could think of with everything else going on. So when I saw the Run for Rare, I posted it to our Facebook page and said, for everybody who's reached out and wants to help us, here's a way that you can do that. You can join our team, you can walk with us, you can donate to this link. In the 3 weeks we've been connected with the Society, we've been in newly diagnosed support groups. They've already done so much for us in this time where we're just lost as parents. So here's how you can help us. And the amount of people that, joined our team, that donated, people that we hadn't talked to in years, people we've never even met before, that was just super humbling to see that, those people were there for us. And in, the weeks to come, in all of the research and trying to learn all of this information, reading words like lack of funding and no cure and orphan disease, that's when I really knew that I had to make it my mission to raise as much awareness as possible, because, money is what's standing in the way of my son's future, and, that's just not a good enough reason for me. So that's when I knew that I wanted to, get my foot in the door with advocacy and fundraising. And Jacob had a bone marrow transplant at Duke in July of 2020, so we were very occupied for the last year. But with the new year coming, I knew that this year I really wanted to be as involved as I could be. So we started brainstorming at the beginning of the year, fundraising ideas, things we could do, whether it be a Society-sponsored event like the Run for Rare again, or an event that we hosted on our own. We decided to do the Run for Rare again, and this year we had much more time to advertise for it and plan for it. And the way we did that was through our Facebook page that we created. Over the last year, we've had so many people that we've had the opportunity to raise awareness with, our friends, our family, strangers, and so many people have followed us through chemo, through the transplant, that they've become invested in our family. And so that was a perfect platform for us to be able to say, hey, we raised $1,750 last year. We want to set our goal at 2,000, and we want to beat our goal from last year. Here's how you can help. It was still going to be a virtual walk, so that was a really unique way to get people from all over involved. And I'm proud to say we exceeded our goal. We raised $3,160 this year with the Run for Rare, and just sharing how the society has helped us over the last year, why we need a cure, why this is important to our family, having people share our posts. Social media has been a great platform for that. And outside of the society sponsored events, we decided that we wanted to host a t-shirt drive or a t-shirt sale and a lemonade stand. So for the t-shirt sale, we had a custom design made up. My cousin designed it for us, and we found a local screen printer so that we could support local, and we took pre-orders and prepayments for sizes, so that way I wasn't ordering a ton of inventory and being stuck with a bunch of random t-shirts at the end. And also it allowed us to buy shirts at a cheaper price and be able to make a larger profit. So we did that to benefit the society, and we ended up raising $1,010 from that, and we set it up so that people would have their shirts by MPS Awareness Day so that they could also help us spread awareness. And outside of MPS Awareness Day, anytime they wear that shirt, it's a great way for them to help us spread awareness, because raising awareness and fundraising really go hand in hand. People aren't going to donate to something that they've never heard of. So the next fundraiser that we held on MPS Awareness Day was a lemonade stand. And this was the idea of our 8-year-old daughter. She said, I want to help give back. I want to help raise awareness. I want to help find a cure for my brother. So she set a goal of $150. We named it the When Life Gives You Lemons lemonade stand and bake sale. And this was a unique fundraiser because it was the first in-person fundraiser that we've held that was going to be directed at a different target audience. Most of our family and friends don't live near us. So the people that were going to come to this, we were going to try and get the community involved. We hung posters in our neighborhood. I reached out and posted in a couple local moms groups I'm a part of, community groups, the Nextdoor app. So this was, targeting a different audience, which is important because everybody in our bubble knows about MPS. They hear me talk about it, they hear me post about it, but we need to be able to reach a larger group of people. So once we did that, we set up a table and a tent in our driveway on MPS Awareness Day. Her goal was $150, and I'm so proud to say that she raised $1,430 from her lemonade stand. It was such a humbling experience to see people that we had never met, our neighbors in our neighborhood, walk up and donate $100 at a time and want nothing in return other than to know about Jacob, to know about MPS, to learn more about it with us. And as a mom, it was so cool for me to be able to see her notice that people are just giving out of the kindness of their heart. That was really important, that she needs to see that. So that was amazing. And because of the success of that fundraiser, our local news station caught wind of it. They did a written article that they published on their Facebook page and on their website. And within hours of them posting that, it had caught so much traction that we then had a Zoom interview with the nightly news anchor, and they aired our story on the 10 o'clock news, and again the next day on the 6 o'clock news in the morning and the 12 o'clock news. So all of those were opportunities for us to raise awareness, and that's however many people that we never would have reached had the news not picked up our story, all because an 8-year-old wanted to have a fundraiser to raise awareness for her brother. And just seeing her look at her little brother and say, I raised this for you, buddy, that's what made it worth it. Not every fundraising event needs to be a gala that takes months and months and months to plan. An idea from an 8-year-old to have a lemonade stand can be just as impactful, and donor burnout is a real thing. While I'm always thankful for our family and friends who are supporting us and donating and helping us fundraise, it's important for us to find other ways to reach different demographics of people so that we can spread awareness, so that we can, not feel like we're asking the same people for money all the time. And people want to give back. Like, that's what I found. People are donating to charities. Giving makes people feel good. So we don't have commercials on TV that talk about MPS. We don't have awareness ribbons at the cash register at the grocery store that people can buy that's going to benefit the MPS Society. So all of the fundraising is being done by parents. So that's why it's so important that we're doing our part when it comes to fundraising, because all of that is making a difference in our family's life, in all of the other MPS families' lives. So that's why it's become so important to me. For example, at the Run for Rare this year, we met up at a local park. We had some of our family and friends, wear their t-shirts. We made posters, and an older woman was there, and she was like, "What's going on? Like, why are you guys all dressed in purple? Like, what is MPS? I've never even heard of this." And, we took 5 minutes out of our day to tell her, this is Jacob. We introduced her. He's 4. He has this genetic disease. We kept it super simple. You don't have to get super technical. And minutes later, she walked back with a $100 bill and donated. I want this to go to the National MPS Society. Like, that's one more person that we reached that had never heard about the MPS Society before, had never heard about MPS before. That's one more person that is contributing to a cure. So, I know that planning a gala type event or even planning a lemonade stand can be overwhelming, but there are so many different creative fundraising events out there. And with technology at our fingertips, you can get on Pinterest and type in fundraising events, and lists hundreds of fundraising events are right at your fingertips. And more people than you think whether they're people from church, or you play an organized sport, or your community. Make your community involved. Go meet local business owners. They're donating to charities. They're sponsoring fundraisers, but chances are they've never heard of MPS, so they're not sponsoring MPS. They're already doing these things. It's just our job to make them aware of what's happening. Maybe you feel called to join a fundraising subcommittee through the society. I had the honor of writing an impact letter for the gala that was hosted on MPS Awareness Day that was sent out to hundreds of North Carolina businesses, explaining, we are a North Carolina family. Our son has this disorder. This is how it's affecting our lives. This is how a cure could change our lives. This is what the MPS Society has done for us. This is why you should donate for the live auction or the silent auction. And, that was a really unique experience, because we were able to reach all of those people, and just by telling our story, something that I do all the time anyway. And I know I mentioned before the power of social media, but it's really been game-changing in how we've been able to raise awareness and how many people we've been able to reach. Being able to hit a button that shares my post, to reach everyone on that person's page, like, that's a powerful tool. And so many stupid things are shared on so many memes, so many things that are pointless, but social media has really opened a window for us to be able to reach people that we otherwise would not have been able to reach. And you can host a birthday fundraiser, and it makes fundraising so easy. Not everything has to be super planned out and hard. On your birthday, you can share a birthday fundraiser that's going to benefit the society, and the money will go directly to them. So a couple things that I have written out that have made our our fundraisers successful, has been looking at a calendar and determining a realistic time frame, creating timelines for specific goals, setting a goal, determining who your target audience is and how to target them and how to reach them, being vulnerable and honest, sharing your story, telling why it's important to you and your family to have a cure, encouraging participation from your family and friends, giving multiple options for donating for those who can't make in-person events, sharing a link. Some people don't want to run, but they want to donate. So being able to have those things easily right there for them. Reaching out to the news and the media outlets to get them involved and to help you raise awareness. Explaining what the MPS Society has done for your family and being specific. People want to know how it's helped you. Thanking your donors, whether it's writing them a personal note or, taking a video of your child, us videotaping Jacob and him saying, thank you for your donation, or thank you, or just, that goes a long way. I also think it's worth mentioning I'm not an expert in fundraising. I'm just a mom who wants to see their son have a future. And in a time when the world was shutting down around us, you know, seeing people dig in their pockets to help us, you know, was so inspiring and something that I'll never forget. I hope this video will inspire you to get your foot in the door with fundraising, whether it be starting with a society sponsored event, you know, where you don't have to do any of the work on the back end. At the end of the day, we're all just trying to do what's best for our kids and, you know, find a cure. And the National MPS Society has so many resources that they can give you and materials that will help you plan an event from start to finish. They're here to support you, just as they've supported me for the last 16 months and my family. So thank you so much for your time, and I'm so blessed to have had this opportunity. Bye.
Hi, we are the
Newmans.
Hi, I'm Ashley.
Brian.
And we live in Iowa, and we have 4 beautiful children. And we have one named Philson, who we just got done doing a fundraiser for, that was diagnosed with MPS II, type A last July, right?
Right.
So we just got done doing a really amazing event called Freedom Fighter Philson's and his Ride on the Rainbow. And so we're here today to talk to you a little bit about how to make your family do a very fun fundraiser and some different tips and tricks and some things that we did creatively that were probably not like anybody else.
Yeah, but just ways to save money.
Yeah.
Include a lot of people.
Yes.
And bring awareness.
Yes.
And just make it really fun.
Yeah. Originally,
everybody.
yeah, like kind of custom to your family and their family's likings and everything like that. So we're going to dive right in. So our first take that we did was way too long. And so we're going to get straight to the point this time and go to the clipboard. So, right, Keelan?
Great.
So, like we said, we did Ride on the Rainbow. So we came up with a theme because our family really likes
Motocross.
So we had just gotten this last year done branding a track, helping open a track. And so for us, it was a really natural flow to be like, hey, can we do a motocross event? National MPS Society. And they were like, yeah, sure. Never been done before. So we were all new on that kind of thing. And so we had so much fun working with the National MPS Society for doing this. I felt like so legit when I handed out like the packets that we gave to different people and stuff too. They helped right away, let us do our own thing and help whenever needed. And any questions that we had, they were there. So number one, they were phenomenal to work for. I don't think I could have worked with anybody else that gave me the freedom to actually do what we did and encourage us to be our family and have fun doing what our family loves to do anyway. So
yeah, and just going even a step further, just when she says that, like the literature and the terminology, and you know, for us trying to go in and explain where this money's going, what MPS IIIA is, you know, Sanfilippo syndrome, like clinical research trial. So Caitlin sent us everything. It's like, here it is. It's one packet. It says what it is, where it's going. And
customized to us, we had a little, kind of like a tour, we call it. Like it's Freedom Fighter Philson and his Rainbow Connection Tour. And so that was kind of like a theme. You know, I know a lot of families kind of have a thing that they go with. And for us, it was very like Muppets meets Greatest Showman and Wes Anderson all in one is kind of like us in a bottle. And so that's what we kind of did with our theme. And so that really fit our family. And that was even custom on those different things that we were able to hand out. And so we were able to make it really personal going with them also. When I was telling him, one thing I think I love so much is any family that's listening to this understands like how structure and routine our lives kind of are, and they go around like different doctor's appointments are kind of centered around, you know, your family and the different flow that it is different. And so it felt so freeing that I didn't have somebody telling me I had to do this, this, and this. And so for me, it was actually like, it was so fun and it was so lighthearted and it gave purpose, and like I saw a vision, I was able to do it. I gathered all the people along the way, and our family was able to really experience something so beautiful, and like everybody that was there had a beautiful time. So we went ahead and in January we started talking about, it was a little bit bigger event. And so we planned our wedding in 9 days, and I had like 6 months to do this, and what happened? So things got big. Yeah.
We knew people that lived right outside our town that have a motocross track facility for us to hold this fundraiser at. So that was step one. Where are we going to do this at?
Yeah. And what was our theme? Like, what were we going to do? And so like, I love motocross and I love that, but we love live music. We like our family being able to be there. And we love food trucks. And so what are some different things that we can bring that our whole family and other people can be involved in, not just like a motocross theme. So it was kind of like a theme and a direction to go, but it ended up not being. Actually, it rained, of course it did, for a rainbow theme. And so those parts ended up actually not working, but everything else did. So there was almost like a backup of a backup. So there were multiple levels of entertainment within that, not just one thing for us. So it was almost like bands of rainbow. It was like a band of a rainbow band.
Yeah. And it initially started as the motocross event, but as we started planning this, it grew with, the different just creative ways that she found for people to be involved, or for people to give, with raffles, with,
And I think it was even like the way the different people, it was more about even like their time. Like we really focused on it being like our family and kids, and like the kids within the school system, that are his friends, and everything too. So we really, and our church family and stuff like that. So we really connected on all of that to make sure that they were personally know how important they are. And it wasn't just a one-time thing. If they weren't able to come to the event, you're part of his life. Like you're part of that rainbow that kept on going for him. And so to get everybody kind of involved with that and knowing how important they were to us as a family was probably our number one priority, is the people that we personally invited and personally had there and stuff too. And so so we ended up having this event. So it was just a couple weeks ago. And so we're kind of on that high still. It was amazing. And so, Filson loves music. So we had a marching band that brought him in. We had a Stasic race. So like a kid's Stasic race that had like these really rad bibs. So I did a lot of custom things, and I don't know if you can see, like there was a lot of cardboard things that were done. We have an entire basement full of stuff. And so Brian and I visually really love that kind of stuff. And so cardboard for me is like, and spray paint are like gold. And so that for me, it helped with like all the pictures, because pictures were important for us as a family. We would love, that's kind of our thing, our profession too. And so pictures are really important, and having the kids involved and making like all the crafts.
Yeah. And I mean, we wanted to keep this like happy, not like a doom and gloom situation. We have to raise money for this, or this is going to happen. It's like nothing like that at all. It was always, mostly bringing awareness to this, but
just our life awareness probably of fun and like lightheartedness, and how like life is so beautiful, and just like inviting you to get like a little taste of what our family believes, and stuff too. And so I think it was more about that and stuff too. And so some kind of tricks, we have like a little list to try to go to, so that we can help you kind of customize, like just encourage you, or just start thinking out of the box, because people are always asked for money. So when we went to approach people, we actually had like something, different businesses, we actually had something that we're going for. We have a packet, and we're actually looking for, like, let's just say even the cupcake place uptown, would you be interested in donating like 5 free cupcakes for like our vending ball prize? So that was something creatively that we did. Like a lot of businesses donated things, or I had specific things that I had family members buy that never stretched anybody. Like, hey, would you be willing to donate like Filson's favorite book? It went towards like a vending ball thing that had like 2 quarters, the prize thing. They had a gumball, it had something in it, had a ticket, and they were able to win something. So kids loved it. I loved it. So our kids loved it. They were even able to win things. And we also had, creatively, we did something with like a raffle. And so that was, people were donating money, and we knew people would donate anyway. Because Filson's amazing. Like, he's so good. He's so sweet. And so we knew that people were going to donate, but I always like, instead of just always asking for money, it was something that people were able to give, and they were able to go into a raffle. So the raffles that we picked were like, they were rad. Like I picked things like, and from different small designers, like Overland sheepskin rugs. I mean, we had Filson bags. We had like beautiful handmade items. We had a really awesome motocross raffle, and people really stepped up and gave to that. And so if they were able to donate directly online to the National MPS Society, they let us know when we put a ticket in. $20 a ticket, $20 a ticket. And so even when people were there, they had something to enter the raffles. They were able to see everything in person. We also opened it up for online. So we were able to prep things ahead of time, so people would start getting excited about it and donating directly online. Yeah. So I have to keep track of my time. We're doing really good on it this time. So I think our next thing, community, right? So communities are really, like we talked about, personally inviting everyone. We didn't go to the huge corporations this time because we didn't personally know anybody. And so not that that won't be another thing to even tap into another time. It was more about like the different people and making sure that people knew how important they were, and the thank you notes that we're going to write, and all that kind of stuff. Trying to go off my thing here.
No, you're doing great.
Thanks, babe. Oh, radio promotion. We never talked about that. So for us, like, I think promotions really helped us a lot. So we did these really awesome posters. So I don't know if you can see, like, we have these awesome ones that we hung up around town. They were not this big. But we have these really rad posters. We had his face all over town. And so, like, these posters were hung up all around and then all over social media. And I was able to go on, like, the radio and talk about that kind of thing. So people, and we handed out things at the school, and we just kind of personally handed different things out and had something really cool. Like, we wanted it to be, like, really hip, really cool. I'm not a runner. And so motocross really worked for us with the vibrancy of the colors and stuff, and something unique that somebody would be interested in coming out to. So we had that, and then some different points and stuff like that we need to talk about. Some creatively, like, different things that we had probably out there that were important for, like, budgeting. So sound system was important for us.
Yeah, and just, you know, when we initially talked to Caitlin, you're like, oh, you know, we'd like to raise this amount of money.
Yeah.
But, you know, she was saying, well, when you do that, you know, you just got to think there's a certain percentage you want to keep your expenses under.
Yeah, that really helps.
So it's a beneficial fundraiser, and
yeah,
we always had that number in mind. It's like, okay, well, do we really need this? Or
yes.
is it going to be taking money away from, you know, money that could be going for the research?
Or can I make that? Is that something that I can personally make, or I know somebody that can willingly? You know, like, I had to do as much as I could from within our family. So that's why I started way, way early, because I am a mom. I have 4 children. So having my kids involved in every process really helped us out a lot. So the kids were able to be involved and feel like it was their event, not just Filson's event. It had, you know, Freedom Fighter Filson, that's why we were there for that. But we were there as a whole family because we worked together as a team. And so that was huge. We were able to cut a lot of costs, and creatively, like, kids do things that you never can recreate. And so I think taking full advantage of my kids' creativity, as you should, really made it more beautiful. So the imperfectness became so much more perfect because they did it.
Yeah, and one bit of advice we would give to families, if you're doing a fundraiser at somebody else's property or somebody else's company or venue, just do a contract beforehand.
Yeah, totally.
You know, it just makes things a lot easier.
Yeah.
There's no question afterwards, like, this percentage goes here, this percentage goes here. So that'd be
that would be good. And I think it was more about, like, I can give you this much, what can I give for this amount? So I think that for me, I would probably be like, I have this much to spare because it keeps me within that budget. And then, are you willing to do that for that? If not, no problem. We'll go a different direction. And so that was kind of a big thing that we learned this time going forward. But number one, we maintained relationships. Like, we still kept strong relationships, and that was huge. And we grew knowing what we would do next year. That would make it more profitable or more fun and stuff like that too. So personal connection. So number one, it was connecting with a lot of different people that we knew, but also like there's a lot of people that creatively, like, maybe, you know, that do different things or different skills or different gifts that can really be, I always felt like people were really honored to be asked. It's like they wanted to be asked to help, because it's always about, like, planting a seed or going something. It gives somebody else a chance to be able to do something amazing and beautiful too, and it really blesses everybody involved. And so we did take that approach too. It's like, people want to be asked to do things. They want to be involved in something so beautiful and so fun. Especially because we have beautiful relationships with the community that we have around here. And so we really tapped into the community that we have. And so that was kind of big, and not catered to the community. We did what our family does. And that was creatively different than something around here. And people really showed up for that.
Yeah. And even, you know, just bringing awareness of this.
Yes.
You know, now another business owner in our town has stepped up, and we're doing another event this Thursday.
Yeah.
That's going to raise even more money.
Yeah. And I think it's more about even more awareness. So for us, it was about more people recognizing, like, Filson is with us, you know, and just our family of him being super recognizable, you know, and stuff too. And so that does bring awareness, and that brings, like, just the lightheartedness about it and stuff too. And that's what we wanted to keep and stuff that way. So, but no, if you guys have any questions, like let Caitlin know, or and then we'd be happy to answer any questions that you have, because we had so much that we did in that little amount of time. But it was so fun and it was so beautiful.
It was.
And,
it was really happy.
It was so.
Everybody had a great time.
Yes. Yeah.
And we raised a lot of money.
And we did something
it's still coming in.
And it's still coming in. Yeah.
Which is
and
awesome.
We just really did something that fit with the flow of our family, even if it wasn't traditional. That just really worked for us. So.
Yeah, and Filson's awesome. Everybody loves Filson, and everybody just wanted to come out and
he's amazing.
Support him. And,
I mean, he loves the Mickey Mouse Mall. I mean, it's a marching band and parades on a dirt track. I mean, it can't get much better than that. Until next year?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
All right.
Bye.
Thank you, Alicia, Ashley, and Brian. I am pleased to introduce once again Dr. Barbara Burton. She is a professor of pediatrics at the Northwestern University Feinberg School of Medicine and director of the MPS and ML treatment program in the Division of Genetics, Birth Defects, and Metabolism at Lurie Children's Hospital of Chicago. Dr. Burton is board certified in pediatrics, clinical genetics, and clinical biochemical genetics. She is speaking today on genetic counseling and family planning and will review the patterns of inheritance for each condition, the genetic counseling process, and reproductive options of consideration for those at an increased risk of having a child with a genetic disorder. Welcome, Dr. Burton, and thank you for sharing your time and expertise with us today.
Hello, it's my pleasure to be joining you today to talk about genetic testing and family planning in the context of the MPS disorders. Today, we're going to cover the genetic basis of the MPS disorders. We'll talk about risks to future children faced by parents of children with MPS disorders or by patients who themselves have MPS disorders, and risks to other family members. We'll talk about carrier testing, and finally address the reproductive options that are available for addressing the risk. So let's begin by just reviewing the genetics of the MPS disorders. We know that all of the MPS disorders are genetically determined, meaning that the information that says that an individual is going to have an MPS disorder is contained within the genetic information or the genes. And all of the MPS disorders, except MPS II, are inherited in what we refer to as an autosomal recessive fashion. What that term means is that it takes two genes to have the disorder, one coming from each parent. And those genes are not located on the sex chromosomes. They're located on one of the chromosomes that are the same in both males and females. So males and females are affected with equal frequency. So this is true for MPS I, MPS III, 4, 6, 7, really all of the MPS disorders except MPS II. MPS II is an exception because it is inherited in what we call an X-linked or a sex-linked recessive fashion. Males and females differ in their genetic makeup. In one pair of the 23 pairs of chromosomes, the chromosomes being the big bags of genes, the structures that house all of our genes. And 22 of those pairs are the same in males and females. But in the 23rd pair, we find in females 2 chromosomes called the X chromosome, and there are matching genes on the 2 X chromosomes, just as there are on the other pairs of chromosomes. But males, instead of having 2 X chromosomes, have 1 X chromosome paired with what's called a Y chromosome. And it's the Y chromosome that makes you a male. It has all the genes that determine male characteristics. And it doesn't have genes that match those on the X chromosome. So if a male has a recessive gene on their one and only X chromosome, it will show up or cause the problem that it codes for, whereas females If they have one gene, say for MPS II, they typically have a normal gene on the other X chromosome. And because that disease gene is recessive, it doesn't show up and they are perfectly normal. So with MPS II, almost all of our patients are male. There are very rare situations where a female can have MPS II. Really very rare. I've never seen it in my 40-year career in genetics. But it does very rarely occur, and there are special circumstances having to do with the genetic information that can allow this to occur. But by and large, all of the patients are male. And we know that carriers of MPS disorders do not have any symptoms whatsoever. So carriers of MPS I, female carriers of MPS II, carriers really of any of the MPS disorders, because they have typically a gene for the disorder paired with a normal gene, and the normal gene is enough to completely normalize the step in the body and the gag breakdown, and so they don't accumulate any gags. Carriers do not, and they do not have any clinical symptoms. So let's just back up and talk a little bit about genes. We know that humans have over 20,000 pairs of genes that determine all of our inherited characteristics. And genes are made of DNA. DNA is the chemical that contains all the genetic information. It's the fundamental chemical that makes us what we are, and it is organized into genes, which are the individual units of hereditary information. And those genes are packaged in cells in the body, every cell, every organ, on structures called chromosomes, which come in pairs. And the genes are arranged on these chromosomes really like beads on a string, one next to another. And because the chromosomes are paired, we also have pairs of almost all of our gene pairs. So genes come in pairs typically in the body. And normal humans have 46 chromosomes, 23 pairs. And like I mentioned earlier, 22 of those pairs are the same in males and females, whereas the 23rd pair, called the sex chromosome, consists of the 2 X's in females and 1 X and 1 Y in males. And the genes on the Y chromosome are what lead a developing baby to become male. Now, changes in genes, which we can refer to as variants or mutations, can be benign. In other words, they may have no effect on how the gene works or the information it provides. They might just represent normal variation in the DNA. And we know that our DNA is very variable. No two human beings are identical, and that is because, their DNA is different. So changes in genes can be benign, and sometimes if we know they're benign, we call them polymorphisms instead of mutations, but they can also be pathogenic or disease-causing, related to the occurrence of disease. So certain changes in genes can cause the gene not to work well. And when that happens, that's when you may have a gene that causes a birth defect or a problem or a disease, like an MPS disorder. And it's estimated that all of us, everyone in the general population, carries maybe 6 to 8 different autosomal recessive mutations. So changes in genes on those 22 pairs of chromosomes that are the same in males and females, that in the right combination could cause disease in our children, because there are hundreds, if not thousands, of autosomal recessive diseases. But what typically happens is that you find a partner who has a different set of mutations than you do in different genes, and so you never make that match, and so you never know what you carry. Now, we're getting into an era where some people are undergoing very extensive testing for autosomal recessive gene changes. It's available now through laboratories to couples planning pregnancies or early in pregnancy. Doctors may offer the patient testing for several hundred different autosomal recessive diseases. So some people do find out, what some of the genes are that they're carrying. But as long as the partner has different ones, is not carrying one of the same ones, you're not at risk for having a child with that disease. And so that's true of most of us. And so the only thing different typically about parents of kids who have autosomal recessive disorders like MPS I or MPS III or MPS VI is that just coincidentally, both of them were carrying mutations or changes in the same gene. But it doesn't mean you're genetically defective in any way. Absolutely not. You're genetically the same as everybody else. It's just that making that match, then you can see the combination of genes in the child and know that this is one of the genes that you carry. So this is how autosomal recessive inheritance works. Here you see a diagram of, a father, male, mother. Both of them have a pair of chromosomes. And here we're illustrating the MPS gene in purple. So this is a gene that has a mutation on it, whereas the light colored, the light blue or white gene on the other chromosome is the normal gene. So these two people are completely normal. And what happens when you make eggs or sperm cells is that you put in one member of each gene pair. So the mother can contribute either the MPS gene or the normal gene, and the same for the father. And the child will have an MPS disorder like the little boy on the left here, only when both of them contribute the MPS gene. Whereas if either one of them contribute the normal gene, or both of them contribute the normal gene, then the child will be perfectly normal. So when both parents are carriers of a gene for an autosomal recessive MPS disorder, whether it's MPS I, MPS VI, MPS VII, MPS III, the risk is 1 in 4 or 25% in any pregnancy that the baby will be affected. And 3 out of 4 chances, or 75%, that the child will be healthy and normal. But if you look at the 3 healthy normal possibilities here, you can see that 2 out of the 3 are carriers of the gene for the disorder. So what that means is that healthy siblings of children with MPS I or MPS III or MPS VI or 7 or 4, they have a chance of 2 out of 3 of being a carrier of the gene. That doesn't mean anything for their health, but when they get ready to have a family, that's information that's important for them. And they may choose to have testing of their partner to see if the partner is also a carrier, something that's unlikely but possible. What about the situation with MPS II? Now here we said it's a little bit different because this is an X-linked recessive disorder. So let's look at the situation on the right side of the slide first. And this is a couple where the father is healthy. He does not have MPS II, so he has a normal gene on his one and only X chromosome for iduronate 2-sulfatase, the normal MPS II gene, if you will, whereas the mother has one chromosome with a normal gene and one with the MPS II gene. She has 2 X chromosomes, and they both have an I2S gene, and one is normal and one is for MPS II. Now, when the father makes sperm, he can either put in his X chromosome or his Y chromosome. If he puts in the Y, that means the baby is a boy. If he puts in the X, the baby will be a girl. That's why it's sometimes said it's the father who determines the gender of the child, because a mother always contributes an X chromosome, but she can contribute, in this case, either the normal X or the X with the MPS II gene. Now, if you look at the possible offspring at the bottom of the slide, you'll see that the way this all sorts out is that if the father contributes the Y chromosome, making it a boy, and the mother contributes her MPS II gene, then the boy will have MPS II. Whereas the situation, if the father contributes his Y chromosome, in the third example here, and the mother contributes her X with the normal gene, a little boy would be completely healthy, would not have MPS II. So of the possibilities in the sons, the risk is 1 out of 2 or 50% that any son born to this couple would have MPS II. If we look at the possibilities for females, we can see that the father's always going to contribute a normal gene on his X chromosome. And if the mother contributes her normal gene as well, then you'll have a daughter who is not affected with MPS II, of course, but also is not a carrier. But if the mother contributes her chromosome with the MPS II gene, then the daughter will be a carrier. So for a couple like this, where the mother is a carrier, father is healthy, the risk in any pregnancy is 1 in 4 for MPS II. But if you know it's a son, it's 1 in 2 or 50%. And of the daughters, the risk would be 50% or 1 out of 2 that any daughter would be a carrier. Now let's look on the left side of the slide at what happens if we have a man with MPS II who now is having children with a woman who is not a carrier of MPS II. She's healthy and normal. She is always going to contribute a normal gene on one of her 2 X chromosomes. That's these examples here. And if the father contributes the Y chromosome, then regardless of which of these 2 normal X's the mother contributes, that baby boy would be completely healthy and normal. This man cannot have a son with MPS II, because to have a son, he has to contribute his Y chromosome, and it doesn't have a gene for MPS II. But if he contributes his X chromosome with the MPS II gene, the child will be a daughter, and then regardless of which of the 2 chromosomes comes from the mother, that daughter would be a carrier. So if we have an adult male with MPS II having children, none of the sons will be affected, none of the daughters will be affected, but all daughters would be a carrier of the gene for MPS II. And then, of course, they may be at risk when they have children. So an affected man with MPS II could have grandsons with MPS II. So we just talked about how this autosomal recessive inheritance works, and we saw that full siblings of individuals with MPS 1, 3, 4, 6, or 7 have a chance of 2 out of 3 of being a carrier of the disease gene. However, they could only have an affected child if they choose a partner who is also a carrier. And because these are rare diseases, and it's fairly rare for someone in the general population to be a carrier, the risk of this is really low. However, testing is available to both determine if the sibling is a carrier, and then if so, if the partner is interested in being tested, that can be done as well. We know that siblings of parents of children with MPS II, so in other words, aunts and uncles of an affected patient with, not MPS II, but with the recessive MPS disorders, all of the others have a 50% risk of being carriers. Again, it's uncommon to find the disorder occurring again anywhere outside of the immediate sibship, because both members of the couple have to be carriers to have an affected child. But again, carrier testing is available. This has to be done with DNA analysis on a blood sample. Enzyme testing is not accurate for determining carrier status. Now with MPS II, it's a little bit different. We know that although mothers of boys with MPS II are usually carriers of the MPS II gene, this is not always true. So when there's no other family history of the disorder, and we see a new diagnosis of MPS II in a little boy, the only case in the family, up to a third of the time, somewhere between 22% and 30% of the time, the mother is not a carrier of the gene. The disorder has occurred as a result of a new gene mutation in the child. The normal gene basically changed into the gene for MPS II in the formation of the egg that created the child. And mutations occur randomly. We can't identify a cause, but they occur in all genes. It isn't caused by anything you do wrong or should have done differently. It's just a fact that the way the DNA duplicates itself or replicates itself in making eggs and sperm isn't a perfect process, and sometimes accidents happen and mutations occur. So it's really important in those isolated cases that the mothers be tested to determine if they're carriers. Because if the mother is not a carrier, then the risk to that couple of having another child is actually very low. Whereas if the mother is a carrier, then we talked about the 1 in 4 risk. So that is very important. Now, if the mother is not a carrier, no other testing of any other family members is needed. But if the mother is found to be a carrier, then there may be other family members at risk. Of course, new mutations can also happen in a mother. So you can have a carrier mother in a family where nobody else in the family has the gene, but we can only determine that through testing. So if the mother's a carrier, then sisters of the affected patient, certainly her daughters, have a risk of 1 in 2 of being carriers. And other female family members, like the mother's sisters, aunts, cousins, are also at increased risk and should be offered testing. Now, if you have a family history and you have a child with MPS II, let's say there was an uncle and now a new baby is born, well, we know the mother is a carrier. So I'm talking really about the isolated cases where this could be a new mutation. So we talked about the fact that even though we use enzyme testing to make the diagnosis of MPS II, we need to use genetic testing, looking at the DNA itself, to identify the mutation in the patient. This can help us both with some predicting the outcome in some cases, in other words, determining, say in MPS II, if there's going to be neurologic involvement or brain involvement or not. In MPS I, if it's going to be the more severe Hurler type or the more attenuated type. So it can be helpful for the patient, but it's also what we need to utilize to do carrier testing. We have to know the DNA changes. We have to be able to identify them to test for carriers or to test other family members to see if they're carriers. Now, testing for the affected individual who's newly diagnosed is usually covered by your insurance. It's usually covered by insurance, often covered by Medicaid. It's part of the diagnostic process because it gives doctors information on whether, the severity and other aspects of the condition helps confirm the diagnosis. It's usually covered. There's no always in medicine, so I don't want to guarantee you that that's going to be the case in any individual case, but usually this is true. It may not always be covered if you're trying to do carrier testing, for another family member or something like that, but there's a great option for this. And that is that there is no cost testing currently available through a laboratory called Invitae. And they have a program called Detect LSDs, lysosomal storage disorders. That's what LSD stands for. And this includes the MPS disorders. And this testing is sponsored by a number of pharmaceutical companies who provide the funding to Invitae to be able to provide the testing. And this can be used not only to confirm the diagnosis in a patient. Sometimes a doctor may suspect a disorder, not necessarily know which one, want to do a panel of tests and use this test to make the diagnosis in the patient. or if your insurance won't cover the molecular testing for your child, this is a way you can get it, but you can also use it for carrier testing. So if you need information about this, by all means, go to the Invitae website, look at detect LSDs, or alert your doctor if they, are arranging testing for you and aren't aware that there is currently this free testing program. Of course, this may not always be there, but now it is. So this is something you could use currently. So once you know that you're at some increased risk of having a child with an MPS disorder, say you're parents, you've had an affected child, you have a risk of 1 in 4 of having another affected child. Let's talk about what some of the reproductive options are that are available to you. Of course, reproductive decisions about family planning are extremely personal ones, and they're always going to be influenced by so many different factors, how badly you want children, your own religious beliefs, and what options are acceptable to you. Many factors come into play. So there's no right answer to how couples should face the risk of having an affected child or what choices they should make. But I think it's really important for all couples at risk to be aware of what the options are so they can make the choice that's best for them. So a couple of options are immediately obvious. Of course, you can understand your risk and just decide that you're willing to take the risk and test the child at birth so that early treatment can be initiated if available. Or you may decide that you're going to forego having any other biological children. Those are the most obvious things. We also can do what is called prenatal diagnosis for the MPS disorders. In other words, if a pregnancy is already ongoing, we can test that developing baby or fetus to determine if it's affected. And this can be done in one of 2 different ways. There's a test called CVS, chorionic villus sampling, that's done in the first trimester. And there's a test done in the second trimester called amniocentesis. CVS takes a little sample from the developing placenta, which is fetal in origin, and amniocentesis takes fluid from the bag of waters. And in that fluid, there are cells that come from the fetus that can be tested. Now, if we utilize testing prenatally by either CVS or amniocentesis, and the testing shows that the baby is affected, then the option is either pregnancy termination or continuing the pregnancy knowing that the child is affected and preparing for that. Most of the time, of course, because these procedures have some small risk associated with them, couples who feel like pregnancy termination would never be an option for them often choose not to have testing prenatally, but you still could, because sometimes 3 times in 4, the results will be normal, and that can relieve a lot of anxiety. Another option is what we call pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, where in vitro fertilization can be utilized, and then testing can be done on the embryos before implantation into the mother, with implantation only of those that are free of disease. Another option would be either sperm or egg donation from a donor who is not a carrier, so that would avoid the risk of recurrence. Now with MPS II, because the gene comes only from the mother, only egg donation would be applicable. Sperm donation wouldn't help. And the use of egg donation requires in vitro fertilization. And then finally, of course, adoption is always an option. Just to show you a little bit about some of these options, the use of donor sperm is actually very easy. It's done in the doctor's office. Sperm is obtained from a sperm bank from an individual who's been tested. So you know that he is not a carrier of the disease in question. And then the sperm is just injected through the vagina. The woman's in position as she would be for a pelvic examination. It's injected into the uterus, and then pregnancy occurs or doesn't in the usual fashion. And this may have to be done several times before you become pregnant, but it's a really simple, quick outpatient procedure. Amniocentesis or chorionic villus sampling are shown here. On the left, you can see amniocentesis. This is done with ultrasound guidance, and a needle is inserted through the mother's abdomen into the bag of water surrounding the baby. Sample is withdrawn, and as I mentioned, the cells floating in there can be analyzed. With chorionic villus sampling, ultrasound is also used, and a small little sample is taken from the placenta. Here you see a diagram of one type of procedure that can be done, which is inserting a catheter through the vagina, up through the cervix, into the developing placenta, and withdrawing a small sample. In some cases, this is also done transabdominally with a needle into the placenta from above to get the same sample. Again, these are outpatient procedures, minimal discomfort, small risk of miscarriage associated with both of these. In vitro fertilization is that procedure whereby eggs are harvested from a mother, either the natural mother or a donor, if you're using an egg donor, after the ovaries are stimulated so that multiple eggs become ripe at the same time, whereas normally in a menstrual cycle, it's only one a month. And then those eggs are harvested and they're fertilized in the dish with sperm from the male partner. And once that occurs, once you have a fertilized egg, it starts to develop in the Petri dish. One cell forms two, and then two form four, and then this continues. And at about the 8-cell stage, you can remove a cell and test it genetically without harming the rest of the embryo. So testing would be done for the specific DNA mutations associated with the disease in that family. And, what this is showing you is that testing was done on all of these cells, and it showed that the ones in red were affected with the disease. The green ones were unaffected, so only those embryos would be put back into the mother to initiate a pregnancy. The affected ones would either be destroyed or stored or contributed for research. So that's a little bit about reproductive options. I think every couple at risk of having a baby with an MPS disorder should have genetic counseling. If you haven't had the opportunity to sit down with a genetic counselor, review your risks, and review all of these reproductive options in detail, you really should. Many times this happens at the time of diagnosis, but you may have really so much going on in your mind at that point that really a little bit later might be an appropriate time to start thinking about future pregnancies and go through this. And don't be afraid that if you go see a genetic counselor, they're going to tell you what to do. They're not. Genetic counseling is not genetic advice giving. It's a process of education and support that really enables individuals and couples to make fully informed reproductive decisions. We all believe, geneticists, genetic counselors, that this should be non-directive, that there is no right or wrong decision, that what's right for an individual couple is the right decision, and that's going to be different for everybody, but you need to be fully informed in order to make the right decisions for yourself and your family. If you don't know where to go for genetic counseling and your physician is not helpful, they're the first place to try, but if they're not helpful, you can obtain guidance from the National MPS Society. They know where geneticists and genetic counselors are located and can steer you in the right direction. or you can also get information on the websites of the American College of Medical Genetics and Genomics or the National Society of Genetic Counselors. And this may apply to other family members who may have concerns as well, not just necessarily to parents of affected children. And it's really important for our grown-up boys with MPS II, because a lot of times all this counseling is provided to parents, but as the boys get older, they need the information. And sometimes there's a misconception that if I have a genetic disorder, my kids are going to have a genetic disorder automatically. And that's certainly not the case with MPS II. So I will stop at that point and appreciate having had the opportunity to talk with you and share this information. Enjoy the remainder of the meeting.
Thank you, Dr. Burton. From here, we encourage you to attend syndrome-specific tracks. These tracks are outlined in a document located in your briefcase in the toolbar at the bottom of the screen. Some groups will be directed to the science session, others will be directed to Zoom. Thank you.